Welcome to ILTV's Insider. I'm Aaron Porras, and today we're looking at Afghanistan.
Millions fearing for their lives, and a humanitarian crisis is unfolding as we speak.
They're announcing that we forgive everyone. It's bullshit. I'm sorry, I'm excuse my language. It's bullshit. I have a lot of their videos. They're knocking people door, asking for interpreter, asking for people that they're in the military, asking for all those people, and they're going to kill them.
In particular, we have also received credible reports of serious violation of international humanitarian law and human rights abuses taking place in many areas under effective Taliban control. They include, among others, summary executions of civilians and all the combat members of the Afghan National Security Forces, restrictions on the right of women, including the right to move around freely and girls' right to attend school, recruitment of child soldiers, and repression of peaceful protests and expression of dissent.
Chaos is reigning in Afghanistan following the United States' rapid military withdrawal and the Taliban's subsequent takeover. Thousands upon thousands of Afghans posting pleas to the international community that are seemingly largely falling on deaf ears. Then to make matters worse, the United States allowing for just one more week of evacuations despite tens of thousands of refugees still fighting their way to the airport. And all the while, the Taliban gaining momentum in reinstating its brutal regime, using billions and billions of dollars worth of advanced American military equipment to do the job. So what does all this mean for Afghanistan, for the Middle East? And can Washington's word still be trusted? Joining us to discuss is Israeli journalist and author of Industry of Lies, Ben-Dror Yamini, and Dr. Michael Barak, senior researcher at the Institute for Counterterrorism at the Reichman University. Excuse me. Thank you both so much for joining us. To begin, how may we expect the disaster in Afghanistan to ripple out? Dr. Barak.
First of all, suddenly, let's say, the withdrawal from Afghanistan was managed very poorly. And the social society in Afghanistan and also the allies of the United States describe it as a shameful withdrawal. And it can have an impact, a negative impact on the image of United States in the eyes of its allies, if at all, when there is a trouble in the Middle East and if there will be a threat, especially the Iranian threat, if the allies of United States can really rely on United States in a matter of crisis. So it has a very bad impact on the withdrawal. Have a bad impact.
Ben-Dror, what will the Taliban? I mean, what can we expect from the Taliban in terms of the international community responding to what's going on outside of the United States? Are we about to see the Taliban accepted by the EU or the UN or even NATO as legitimate negotiation partners?
According to the familiar standards of, for example, Human Rights Council of the UN, just an example, they might join the Human Rights Commission in order to supervise other countries. I mean, everything is possible in the international level concerning this kind of people do not understand what we are facing. And if Iran can be a member in the Human Rights Council and join even the Women Committee, Human Rights Women Committee, it can happen also in with Afghanistan. So we can expect the wars. The main question for us is not will be in a UN institution. The main question for us is actually what will happen here in the neighboring countries. I mean, and the main problem is that what happened with the Taliban taking over all Afghanistan is that it, for the moment, encouraged movements like Hezbollah and Hamas and gives them power to imagine, maybe they are deluding themselves, but they are telling themselves, if we could defeat the US and kick them out of Afghanistan, maybe we can do it also here. with Israel. I mean, Hamas might win and Hezbollah might win. That's what they think to themselves. But just one more sentence. Let's remember the fact that actually it was not a military defeat. It was not, because there was not any battle between, I mean, not lately anyway, between the Taliban and the US Army. And in the battles that took place years ago, the Taliban was always, but always defeated. Let's bear it in mind. So, but psychologically, what happened in Afghanistan in the last 2 weeks, it gives power. It really empowers Hamas and the Hezbollah. And if I am allowed to one more sentence, maybe, just maybe, for many Americans, mainly in the defense and security levels, they know now that they have only one ally in the Middle East, which is Israel. I mean, they cannot trust anybody else. Only Israel. So in a way, there is also something which is positive as an outcome of what happened in Afghanistan.
All right, Dr. Barak, I want to come back to you because going along with what Ben Dror was just saying, we've seen reports that Hamas and Taliban officials in Qatar have been among the first to congratulate one another, the Taliban for taking over Afghanistan and Hamas for their war with Israel in May. How big of a promotion is this? How big of an endorsement is this for the efficacy of terrorism and terror tactics?
Definitely, there is a huge boost for terrorist organization, not only Hamas, but also to other jihadists that were not discussed enough. For example, in Idlib, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, the Uyghurs, the Turkestan party that is active in Syria and also in Afghanistan. The main concern is that Taliban now will give shelter, although it promised the United States in the framework of the peace process, of the peace negotiations, that it will not shelter terrorists. But we see already that Taliban is sheltering terrorists, for example, Al-Qaeda, about 300 terrorists. And the fear is that Afghanistan will be used as a soil or a base also for Hamas, and also maybe also the Islamic Jihad, the Palestinian one, and they can use the logistical help of Taliban and also financial by the opium industry in Afghanistan to finance their activities. And we see that in the publications of Taliban, they are not afraid to conceal it. On the contrary, they say that their main goal after they will liberate Afghanistan is to liberate Al-Aqsa Mosque, to liberate Jerusalem and Palestine. And although they speak and emphasize the fact and emphasize the narrative that they are limited only to the soil of Afghanistan, to the national borders, this is not true, because we saw in interviews with some of the Taliban leaders that the main goal for now, they want to stabilize the national state of Afghanistan, but later on they want to also to support other radical movements and finally to establish the global caliphate. So this is the main fear, that Hamas and Taliban will cooperate, and that's why Israel, and not only Israel, the international community also should monitor the activity of the cooperation between Taliban to other terrorist organizations, and among them Hamas.
So staying on the idea of foreign support or foreign aid, material support or otherwise for these terror movements, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, etc., will Western powers be able to properly clamp down on the Taliban's support network? For example, Camera UK found that the pseudo-British Islamist news site 5 Pillars was defending the Taliban to Western audiences. And this is not a rare phenomenon. Like I said, we saw this with support for ISIL coming out of the United States and from Europe and many other terror groups for that matter.
We all know about the existence of the, how to call it, green-red coalition of extreme left and Islamist jihadists. I mean, we saw them in demonstrations against Israel in many places in Europe and in the United States. And we know about organizations like Code Pink, for example, women that even met the heads of the Taliban and met in Gaza the heads of the Hamas. So this phenomena of people in the West supporting Taliban and Hamas, it's not something new. A very known activist even published a tweet calling for a diplomatic relationship with the Taliban, because this is the best way to solve problems. Very interesting, because she is supporting the BDS. I mean, how comes that the Taliban is so nice in your eyes and you are asking to establish diplomatic connections? And when we are speaking about Israel, and she is a Jew, by the way, Ariel Gold, to those who are interested. I mean, it's interesting, but this phenomena is not new. This is part of the extremists, progressives. They are called woke right now in the US. We know it, and they are part of the. It's not only in some American universities. As we all know, it's something which has some power even in the Democratic Party, and it is part of the problem. It is part of the problem. I do hope, and we all have to hope and pray and work for it that this phenomena will not expand. But we have to face it. Yes, they have allies in the West.
All right, well, Ben Drol, very much akin to what you were just saying, in an op-ed that you recently wrote, you write that, quote, Israel has for decades attempted to impress upon the world the extent of damage and destruction that organizations such as Hezbollah, the Taliban, and Hamas have caused, but that facts are an inconvenience to progressive thinkers, and that all over the Western world, protesters are directing their ire at Israel. How do you blame the West for the spread of an anti-Western religious extremist ideology? Because at the end of the day...
It is very interesting.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
It is very interesting because actually many times when we are speaking about this campaign, anti-Zionist campaign, it's not only an anti-Zionist, anti-Israeli campaign. It's mainly an anti-Western campaign, because I mentioned Code Pink and other organizations and movements and school of thought. They are mainly against the West. I mean, for them, the West is a crime for itself. I mean, the very fact that in the West you have rich countries and all the other things. I mean, they blame the West. And they also include Israel. And because it's not so easy to be against the United States, it's much easier for them to be against what they call the colonialist country, Israel. So it's anti-Americanism, which is combined with anti-Zionism, which is combined with anti-Semitism. Many times it is led also, and we have to face it, by Jews.
All right, Dr. Barak, in the wake of this withdrawal, many have called into question how trustworthy the United States and specifically the Biden administration can be, particularly after Biden's 2010 comments on Afghanistan resurfaced, in which the then Vice President Biden dismissed humanitarian concerns of a quick exit, saying, quote, "We don't have to worry about that. We did it in Vietnam. Nixon and Kissinger got away with it." Can the Biden administration be trusted, especially in the Middle East? And how much stock should we be putting in what the United States says? Dr. Barak.
Look, first of all, I don't think that you should blame a United States policy for 100%. I think there is a big difference between It's true that the policy of United States is shifted to the Chinese Sea. From the Obama times, this was the policy, but United States has not abandoned for 100% the Middle East. Israel is the best ally of United States. There are also military agreements, economic others, and also Saudi Arabia is a very important ally of United States. So I don't think that now all this discourse following the withdrawal from Afghanistan I think it's more politic and in order to demonize the Biden administration. But let's remember that Trump was the one to have this contract, the peace agreement, and one of the failures of this peace agreement with Taliban was that there was no any efficient enforcement mechanism. What does it mean? That one of the conditions of the American withdrawal from the United States was that the Taliban should open negotiations, peace negotiations with the pro-American regime in Kabul, and in order to save the order and to save the stability of Afghanistan. Now, it did not happen, and Trump continued with the withdrawal also of American troops, and also Biden. So I think that the main fault, the bad image that the world got, is what was by this poorly management of the withdrawal. This was until now it has a very negative image, but we should not go so far that and to say that we cannot trust on the American regime. The United States is still interest here.
Well,
and another problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, as devil's advocate here, I agree with you that it was the Trump administration that initiated this withdrawal, but it wasn't the Trump administration that actually performed it. The Biden administration had its own internal security forces and intelligence community telling the White House exactly what needed to be done in order to pull everybody out safely, to withdraw in a better format, and reports are showing that all of those reports were ignored, and that is on the Biden administration. And as I said, this 2010 comment when Biden was vice president shows that he clearly doesn't have that much of a concern for the humanitarian aspect here.
Biden continued with the policy of Trump. You are right, very right, that the withdrawal, and as I said, was very poorly managed. Secondly, I think it's also a huge failure of the intelligence factors inside the United States Army, because there are indications that some members of the National Army of Afghanistan, some officers, corrupted ones, cooperated with the Taliban. For example, they sold weapons to Taliban officers for money, and also, the Taliban also explained in his publication, and everybody could see it in Arabic and in Pashto, that he explained Taliban how he managed to conquer so fast territories in Afghanistan by operating operating leaders, local leaders of tribes that negotiated with the officers in the Afghan National Army, convinced them that they cannot trust on the pro-American regime in Kabul, and that eventually, if they will continue with this cooperation, their family will be damaged or will be killed. And this is what the Taliban called a smart dawah. They said, we are not going now to open a civil war. We are going to convince those who cooperate with United States to abandon or to desert the National Afghanistan Army. So the huge mistake was that the U.S. intelligence factors did not check or monitor maybe those Afghan soldiers, officers that were recruited to this army, because some of them cooperated with the Taliban. And secondly, also the social media networks played a very important role. Taliban use it in order to disseminate or to send messages to these factors who cooperated with the United States in Afghanistan, threatened them not to cooperate. And if they will do that, they will, of course, they will be killed or will be revenged. So I think Facebook or Twitter, they could stop, by coordination with the United States, they could stop this propaganda and using this platform by Taliban as a weapon against the pro-American regime in Kabul. So there are many factors that contributed to the failure of, let's say, establishing a democratic regime in Afghanistan. But it's not only the failure of the Biden administrations. You have to see the big pictures. There are also other factors.
All right, back to you for some final comments, Bendrol.
Final comment is that nothing is lost. Yes, we have to be worried because of Afghanistan is going to be the main base for jihad organizations, shelter, whatever. Of course, it's going to be. But from the other side, we have to bear in mind that it's not that they defeated the US on the ground. It did not happen. What happened is something else. I mean, a kind of despair, tiredness on behalf of the United States. This is not the situation here. And as Dr. Barak mentioned, they had many collaborators among the high ranks of the Afghan army. They don't have something of that kind here. So nothing is the same, but we have to be quite worried because of the new victory of the global jihad.
All right, and Dr. Barak, your final comments, perhaps a response to Bendrol.
Maybe I will add something positive.
Yep.
We know that in Afghanistan there is also an activity of ISIS, and there is a big hate between Taliban and ISIS, and Taliban is very determined to, let's say, purify or to clean the presence of ISIS from Afghanistan. So terrorist fights against other terrorists, it's fine for us, but this is, I'm very pessimist about the fate of the social the social community in Afghanistan, about the women especially.
All right, well, I think we are all in agreement there. In any case, thank you so much, Dr. Barak and Bendrol Yamini, for joining us. I'm Aaron Porras. Please tune in next time on Insider for more on everything Israel. If there's a topic that you'd like us to cover next, let us know about it in the comment sections online. And finally, for more news from Israel, follow ILTV on Facebook and on Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube and ILTV.tv channels. Thank you so much. Be well. We'll see you soon.